limited as the number of folks that we're allowed to have in the boardroom. We are excited to have folks here tonight. We are also streaming this meeting live on the district's YouTube channel. The time is now 5:30 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Let the record show that we have 4 board members here, and we do have a quorum. I move to adopt the agenda. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. All right, board members, is there any need to go into executive session today? All right, hearing none, seeing none, we will go straight into our study session. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, and members of the board, executive team, and all the wonderful staff and leaders out there in the audience, and for our viewing and listening audience out in our community. We're really excited today about providing an update to our community and to our staff about the social emotional wellness state that we are in the district, and an update in essence. I think everybody knows who's been paying attention to one of the big priorities of our district in Tempe Union, and for this governing board, and for me and many of you out there. We all prioritize the social, emotional wellness and healthiness of our students and our staff and all the adults out there. So it's a collective effort. It's really a village, and it's makes me very proud to see part of that village present in this room today that provides the support that makes it happen. And it's a difficult job to do in terms of being mindful of the emotional stability and healthiness of one another and for our students, but it's one that we take seriously and always strive to do our best on behalf of our students and our community and staff. So I want to take it away because this is your time, and I want you to shine because of all the wonderful things that you are doing with our students and staff. I'm going to introduce this to Mr. McDonald. He's the district office, district operations, social emotional wellness, and many other things that he helps out with the district, and we're very grateful for his services. I'm going to hand it over to you, Sean, and you take it from there.
That's great. Thank you very much, Dr. Mendeville. Good evening, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the governing board, Superintendent Mendeville, our executive team, and of course our presenters and guests here tonight, and hopefully those that can watch it from home. And we know that we're videoing this for our teachers and our staff to be able to watch as well. Tonight we will give you a update on the social emotional wellness policies and regulation. And we did want to take a moment to thank you again, Vice President Montero and the governing board members, for the vision in creating this policy and the regulation to help us support our social emotional well-being of our staff and students. Tonight we will talk about the infrastructure that we have put in place since that, and also the plan to continue with the consistency and the fidelity across all of our sites as we continue to do what's best in the social emotional wellness update for our staff and our students. So tonight, as Dr. Mendeville has shared, we have many presenters here, and we wanted to make sure that we spotlighted those great things that all of these wonderful people at the different sites are doing. We simply cannot do this by ourselves, and it does, when we talk about social emotional wellness, it does take a village. It takes everyone to make sure that we're doing our very best. So a few introductions: Maya Arroyo, principal of McClintock; Aaron Smith, school counselor lead here at Marcos Deniza. You guys can raise your hand so they know where you're at. Tristan Rivas with youth specialist, Marcos Deniza. Meredith Morrissey, Bring Change to Mind sponsor from Mountain Point. Sadie Goldman was a student also on our committee, a Mountain Point student who is the president of Bring Change to Mind. Could not be here tonight, so Meredith is helping support that. She is actually looking at colleges and have a college online visit with her parents tonight, so we're very excited for her. Don Milovich, school counselor lead at Corona del Sol High School. Dr. Sarah Boyle, director of special education. Maria Gonzalez, Care 7 Social Services Coordinator. Eric Lauer, our Tempe Union Wellness Coach. Cynthia Martinez, one of our community supports and Not My Kid Program Director. Robin Afinowicz, Care 7 Trauma and Resiliency Trainer. Lisa Laura, our Employee Benefits Coordinator. Charles Cobbs, the Director of District Safety and Security. Dr. Cliff Moon, of course, the Coordinator of Diversity and Inclusion, Dave Huffine, Director of Athletics and Activities, Stacy White, the Director of Instructional Services, and of course, who I'm going to turn it over to, but I want to say a few words about Ron Denny, what he's done in the short period of time. Truly amazing, the Coordinator of Social Emotional Wellness. He is on every campus every week, making sure that he's supporting the administrators and all the warm handoff people that we have. And thank you, of course, to Diane. Diane Muehlman supporting monetarily the amount of socio-emotional wellness supports, and of course, district office with the budget advisory group as well. We appreciate. So I'm going to turn it over. Basically what we're going to do, if they feel comfortable, they're just going to sit in their seats if that's okay with you, if they choose to come up to the podium. But we're going to turn it over at this time to Mr. Ron Denny, and then we may pause about halfway through to see if there's any questions. And then at that point, we can answer questions, but we'll have opportunity at the end to answer a full amount of questions. So, President Garcia, I don't know if you have a preference of that, but we can do that if whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I feel like if there's a strong need and desire to have any additional discussion or questions during a specific point, we're more than inclined to do so, and obviously questions at the end as well. So
very good, Mr. Denny.
President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, Dr. Mendeville, executive team, and everyone here and everyone that's watching. It is an honor to be here tonight to present to you on our update of our social emotional wellness. Our goal today is to provide an update to the community on the progress and the impact of our student mental health and social emotional wellness policy and regulation that was adopted last summer. We're going to look closely at our next steps, and really we're going to start it in talking about how we've impacted our students, how our staff, empowering our staff with students, and talking about our families. The one thing I do want to say is, in addition to all of these people that are up here doing this, we couldn't do it without all the people in our district, and we just don't have time to name everybody, but it really has been everybody that has been supporting and impacting our students, our staff, and our community this year. You're going to hear things that we're doing well. You're going to hear some things that we're having challenges with, and also hear things where there's been some missteps and that we've learned from, and moving forward and how we can learn from that. Again, we're throwing up our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just talking about how we are addressing, we have to have a strong foundation of the physiological, our safety. If we're not feeling safe, then nothing's going to happen that's going to be positive on our campuses. So when we talk about safety, we're really talking about psychological and physical safety. And then working up. One thing we've really focused on over the last year or two, and really this year, is our multi-tiered system of supports. And this is just a visual of what our tiers look like. And in the past, we've really focused on the academic systems, but we really wanted to make this visual that there is a behavioral side, the social emotional side to that. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. And we do work those together. And you're going to hear about Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 throughout this presentation. Next slide. Here is just what our tiers are listed from our social emotional wellness policy and regulation. So everyone can see those. They're consistent with what was on the other page as well. And we will get more in depth on those as we move forward. This year, we really made an intentional effort and put a lot of time and support into supporting our staff. Coming out of a pandemic, knowing what we heard from them last year and what they have experienced, and really knowing that without our staff, our students are not going to be supported, they're not going to be successful. So we focused on trauma-informed practices and a lot of professional development in resilience. We did presentations to district administration. We did those 3 times this year. We did presentations that were required for our certified staff. We've done 2. One will be rolling out here in the very near future. And then we also did, on our half day, we focused and did a trauma-informed presentation for our classified staff. And I would like to turn it over to Rob Nafinowicz from Care 7, who did these presentations, to give you more information on that.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us. Lots of different trainings. Originally, we started with providing information on understanding adverse childhood experiences, particularly during the wake of COVID, and how that affects our youth, our families, and our community. And there's a multi-phase training involved in the initial adverse childhood experiences, and then trauma-informed practices was the second training. And that is best policies and procedures to address the needs of our community, the needs of our schools, understanding the results of mental health, or not the results of mental health, but the struggle that we're having with mental health in the community. And then the third aspect is really focusing on our staff, our administration, the people that are taking care of the community, why we need to prioritize addressing their own toxic stress, potentially their own adversity, and all of the subsequent shadow pandemics that we're starting to see as a result of the larger pandemic. So really addressing the collective trauma that was already pre-existing and now is even exponentially more complicated, and how it's affecting behavior, learning, our ability as helping professionals to serve the needs of those in the community. So lots of information. Thank you.
Next is through our EAP program. This year, we have purchased the Calm app for all district employees, and I did a workshop available on our half day on February 2nd for those that wanted to sign up. We also are now offering Talkspace, which is an online therapy for our staff. And we are just recently are putting this into place. It's called Financial Finesse. We offer an unbiased, award-winning financial wellness program to empower the employees to change their financial life. Lisa will answer questions later if we need to. The other thing that we did during the fall is Amanda Go, who is a yoga instructor, a teacher at Desert Vista. She was teaching a night class and offered to our staff to do weekly yoga sessions prior to that, and she led those in the fall. She's getting her master's degree and finishing that up this semester, so wasn't able to do this semester for time, but just recently sent out an email to all staff that if they want to come to Desert Vista to work with her advanced practicum students that are getting their certifications in yoga at Desert Vista, that they are welcome to do so. We are also doing mindfulness sessions offered at each school for students and staff, and those are done by our mindfulness coordinators there. This is just to show that we have still have our social emotional wellness page that provides tons of resources to our staff and our communities and our students. We did find error on this for one of the phone numbers after the fact, so we are getting that updated. So that resources will be updated right away. We still have our COVID-19 resources up there as well. And then we also offer additional social emotional wellness resources to staff through their staff login. And this is just what this landing page is and examples of what we have in there. We also still have our virtual wellness room with breathing exercises, coloring, guided meditation, stretching, and a lot of these videos are done by Amanda Go. Now we move into, again, just empowering our staff to support our students. And this is our multi-tiered system of supports. This year, we've really worked collaboratively to try to get our school teams to meet regularly to start talking about kids and just getting around the table and having those conversations. We're really trying at the district level to work together as well and not work in silos and bring everybody together, collaborating with special ed and general ed. And then one thing that we did this year is we have implemented a referral form for struggling students, for adults, and a self-referral for students to do, and you'll see an example of those. Stacy and I have been working together closely on this, so I'm going to turn it over to her to talk on this.
Good evening. So this year, we, within the multi-tier support system, we really had three main goals that we went into the school year with. And our first goal had to do with bringing all the adults that are on the campus who play a role in the facilitation and the coordination of our multi-tiered support system together. at the site level and at the district level. So as a small group at the sites, but also coordinating district-wide with everyone who represents those different groups, which includes everyone that's up here, as well as our dropout prevention coordinators and our academic interventionists. And so as Ron said, we focused on moving from individual work of silos to really work in collaboration of the whole child, social, emotional, academic, behavioral, and we thought that doing this first and working on this change in response to our tiered work would really strengthen our programming. And so in doing this, we were able to look at children holistically, and we are doing a much better job of looking at the whole child in response to what they need. And we are providing warm handoffs to each other. And we are hoping that our work provides the opportunity for kids to connect individually with certain people have maybe more expertise in certain areas. This work has also then brought us together just professionally for our rich data discussions, and then have guided our professional development and training and planning for this summer and then into this next school year. Another goal that we had really had to center around systems. And so we needed systems to be able to track our student needs and their progress, and systems to be able to analyze our data. And looking at this data, we'd be able to meet our district goal and our site goal benchmarks. And these systems would also ensure the reflection of, are we meeting the needs of our students, and do we really know that we're meeting those needs, or are we guessing that we're meeting those needs? And so that has really assisted us in targeting the specific prevention or the remediation of interventions for these students academically and social emotionally. And then the third area that really took a lot of effort and coordination through our academic interventionists is, last year we had peer-to-peer tutoring at one of our sites. And so I am proud to say that we have that up running on all of our sites for our kids, which not only addressed the academics, but also that social connection with each other and with different groups of kids that they maybe not have come in contact with before. And so we're able to offer that on all of our campuses through our peer-to-peer clubs and organization that they have coordinated that work through. But we also have it virtually for our students. So in the evening when they're home or alone, or they don't know what to do, or they just want to talk to somebody, we have had kids that have virtualed in just to make a connection with somebody because they're home alone. And that has really benefited our group of students as well. And so those are the three main goals that we worked on this year with all of our multi-tiered support systems.
This year, we also did suicide prevention training. All of our staff almost all of our staff in the district has completed the Act on Facts, which is a 1-hour suicide prevention training. We have trained almost all of our student support professionals, which includes SROs, school counselors, social workers, behavior interventionists, nurses, youth specialists, school psychologists, in applied suicide intervention skills. But we have one small group that we have to finish just because of time and capacity. So that will be done, we're looking at July, just for that smaller group. We also were able to, we want to target different groups that really interact with our kids and that really need that additional support to work with kids. And so we were able to include our Indian Education Department this year. And as we move forward, we will start to focus on administrators, extracurricular activities, security activities, anybody goes out of state, those types of folks, to give them that extra level of training on how to ask those questions, what to look at, what does that support look like, and then how to get them to the appropriate resources. Act on Facts is one option that meets the Mitch Warnock Act required suicide training set forth by the state. We will be moving towards Safe Talk. The reason we did not do that and have not is because it needs to be done in person. So because of COVID, we weren't able to do that. So we are working on getting folks trained to become in-district trainers, and we'll start doing that as we move into next year. And then as we plan with Safe Talk, we're talking about support to staff. We do plan to target students and different groups and figuring out how we do that, whether that's student council or bring Change to Mind clubs, activities, and start to figure out what makes the most sense there. Ideally, if we could make it happen, would be every student gets it in some way. So that is definitely a goal that we'll be working towards. The other focus this year has really been on our crisis team and our threat assessments. As we spoke last year, we had done training on our new individual crisis response protocols for our student support professionals. So that's how to do risk assessments, those suicide assessments, safety plans, and how to intervene. Don Milovich will be speaking to that in a little bit, just on how that's been implemented at Corona as one example. One thing that we did know too, and we have known for a while, is that our crisis teams and our other support professionals need more training in how to respond to a crisis, not only immediately after, but then what does that ongoing support look like for the students and for our staff? So at the start of the year, Teen Lifeline recommended a crisis intervention stress management training. So we had that set for January. Unfortunately, with Omicron, that pushed it back. So we actually do that tomorrow and Friday with Tom McSherry, and that will be for our district crisis team. And really what it is to get those folks trained to be better able to respond to our crisis. But the plan is also looking at different models, whether that will be our model or we will look at a prepare curriculum that is produced by the National Association of School Psychologists and getting more people trained. So we're kind of comparing the two. That's why we just started with the pilot on this. And if this makes the most sense, then we will start getting everybody trained in that. We also are, based on that and in working with our crisis teams, is coming up with a comprehensive crisis response protocol and process. And the goal would be to develop that after these trainings and get that implemented next year. Also, we are working with Teen Lifeline for a more comprehensive post-mention process. We currently have one in our regulation and in our policy, but they've helped us develop more comprehensive with more resources. That is in process. That will help. Unfortunately, as we know, this year we have had to respond twice to Desert Vista. We had to go we've gone to McClintock for a student death and then DV for a staff death as well. And through that, we've learned through feedback and just knowing and debriefing and reflecting that we did not do what we should have done. And I take full responsibility for that as our crisis lead in how we inform staff and how we inform students and what we can do better with that piece. That's not on Principal Dignan, it's not on our counselors, that is squarely on me, so I take responsibility for that. I have really working to restore and repair that relationship with the staff, with the students. I have already met with their leadership team and got the department lead feedback and input on that and how we can do and be working to meet with the staff on March 31st. We also got good feedback, as we're going to get into later, is that Desert Vista had started at the beginning of the year a student wellness committee, and it's fantastic. And I've been a part of most of those meetings throughout the year. After this most recent death, they called a special meeting to give the student perspective, which was very powerful. It was a very emotional meeting, but they provided a lot of good information, and they do want to be a part of the solution. And it's really good for us to hear that, especially me, been leading our crisis team, to hear that perspective and some of the things we do and the impact that that has. So we'll be meeting with, again, as a follow-up on Monday for that piece as well. We have also adopted a comprehensive school threat assessment guidelines, which is called the CSTAG. That is the threat assessment model that was adopted by ADE. We have got a large group of folks trained. We still need to get more in that process, and we will be implementing that new process at the start of next school year. Mr. Cobbs, anything to add?
Now, Ron, I think you gave a good overview of that. We will work to get folks trained in the CSTAG model. It's really, we have the structure in place. We just need to make sure that the protocols are what they should be. The new forms that we will be adding to our threat assessment unit, our threat assessment process, will make it a lot simpler to go through that process in a more streamlined time frame. So that's really, I think, what we're looking at this point.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Huffine and Dr. Boyle, or she'll be coming down the bottom, but Mr. Huffine to talk about restorative practices.
Thank you, and good evening. When it comes to the different ways we're supporting social emotional wellness, we've turned to restorative practices to address the needs of the students to build and restore positive and healthy relationships, not only with just each other, but with the staff members as well. We're looking to improve behavior, and we're looking for them to learn how to resolve conflict. One of the things that we have started was a 2-hour professional development training for all of our district teachers prior to the start of the school year in the summer. That was presented by Richard Long of the Educational Life Skills company that came in and presented his Rooted in Restorative Practices discussion, and it was very, very powerful. We also gave every teacher the Outward Mindset book, which gives real-world examples in all different types of occupations of what an outward mindset really looks like and how it can be used and benefited from those that look to change their views. We've also created a social and emotional student conduct committee in which we have utilized classified and certified staff members, administrators, parents, SROs that have been meeting to review the discipline matrix and looking at possible changes to consequences that are found within the student handbook to a more responsible form of restorative practices.
Thank you. We, through ESSER funding, we have, are in process of hiring behavior interventionists at all 6 schools, not only for, that'll be for general ed, and then we also will be hiring 3 additional for the schools that do not have behavior interventionists in special ed to get those hired. It's in place for next school year. We currently have 1 youth specialist from Care 7 at every one of our high schools except for Marcos, who does have 2. We are moving and in the hiring process of getting 2 at every high school. We've had 2 rounds of interviews and are getting those in place. And Maria Gonzalez from Care 7 will speak to that in a little bit. Dr. Boyle?
Hello. So I'd like to go back to the behavior interventionists real quick, just on the special education. We worked really hard to find people. We had so many applicants, but we made sure they all have mental health backgrounds, mental health training, degrees. And it was very important to me that these behavior interventionists on the other 3 campuses not only are a support for the students, but also for the teachers. So when they asked, what are you looking for in the behavior interventionist, we said we want someone who can come in and support the teachers, support the classroom environment, help support the students, maybe pull them aside if they need it. So it's going to be really awesome to have that extra hand in there. And then in discipline, when I asked Ron to add this, it's kind of an all-around. In the pre and the post, we have had a lot of student discipline this year, I will admit, after following COVID. And we have our program for alternate to suspension. And these are students that might be suspended for 10 days or 45 for what we call the big three. A lot of those happen to be drugs. And so those students are offered an option for the first time that they are, that they have that discipline to go through counseling and only have 10 days of suspension rather than the 45. And a lot of them do choose that for that first time. We also, if they do end up over with our Menta staff in the Self 1045 building, we have, Menta actually has on staff regularly, her name is Sarah Sheridan, but she's a licensed master social worker, and she comes in and she checks in on the kids and she works with them and pulls them aside to work with them as needed. So we make sure that when they're over there, they're being checked on regularly, and if they need to come aside and work with her, she pulls them aside. I also want to say that several of our sites have talked about really, I know, pulling in those restorative practices. John Shirk from McClintock has really, he wanted me to make a point because I asked them, is there anything you guys want me to say? And I know that he's worked really hard to pull restorative practices into his campus, and he even gave me some examples of students that they've shortened their suspension to do community service on the campus. So if there was an issue in the cafeteria, he has them go back and clean up or work in the cafeteria to shorten that suspension. So, and he said that he's seen less issues from some of those students after. And then also for McClintock, I know in their master schedule next year, they're kind of re-amping up one of the social skills classes that we have in the catalog that hasn't been used much. And I know they were passionate about, we were kind of on the border of adding a teacher, and I know that it was very important to them to have a teacher to be able to have those social skills classes to work with the students on positive behavior supports to help avoid some of the discipline issues. And so that's something that we're excited for next year for them.
Now we're going to Dr. Moon is going to be talking about diversity and social emotional wellness, and he's going to be addressing kind of how we've supported staff and then transitioning that into how we've supported students.
Thank you, Ron. Good evening, folks. At the beginning of the school year, we had a conversation with Assistant Superintendent Sean McDonald and also with Ron Denny. And the discussion was, how do we create diversity and inclusion professional development so that it relates to social emotional wellness? And so I took that, that request and did some research. And the research spells out that, yes, diversity and inclusion does have an integral role in social emotional wellness. So with that, I decided to find out, well, what sort of diversity and inclusion are folks interested in? A couple of years ago, we had a survey that was completed by approximately 700 people, and they gave us an idea of what they were interested in when it comes to diversity and inclusion. They also indicated that they would be more likely to participate in discussions if they were in the form of webinar or podcast or possibly in-house lecture, not in-house lecture, but some small group studies. So what I did this year in light of the COVID issues is I put together a number of professional development activities that were in the form of webinars. I also had the opportunity to meet with student groups. And so with the student groups, I made an explicit effort to tie in relationship building, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and then self-awareness. And what guided me in working with the students was that I wanted the students to be able to articulate to me what was their idea of diversity and inclusion, how important it was, how do they, as change agents in their schools, foster and promote diversity and inclusion, and then probably what's most important is how does diversity and inclusion relate to me as a student and a resident and a future citizen in our school community. So you see there are a series of not professional development, but sessions in which I was directly involved in meeting with the students out at their school sites. If you can go to the next. And then you can see that there's a series of professional development activities. Most of them were in the form of webinars. There was one or two that was in person. And I thought that I might not be able to really have that rich discussion if it was not in person. But as I shared with Dr. Wilson this evening, I am receiving some very, very, very rich reflection responses. Responses that were very grateful for us to provide this information for them and to help them to process their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, and their feelings. And there's where the social emotional wellness comes into place about their relationships with their students and with their families. I think the challenge that I do have is while we have certificated individuals, employees involved in the professional development, I've got to come up with some sort of a strategy and have conversation with Dr. Keller about how do we engage more of our classified employees in these professional development opportunities that speak to diversity and inclusion with the relationship of social emotional wellness.
We can go ahead and skip. Keep going. One more. Right there. So now that we have moved into the portion of this where we're really talking about what we did for students. This is the first year in our district that I know of that every school participated in the Teen Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month that is put on by Teen Lifeline. They bring out various agencies to each school and have tables, information, really engage with students. And they do that during both of their lunches. Corona has been doing it for years. Other schools have done it here and there. But this year we got everybody to do it, which was fantastic. And actually Corona was one of 3 winners of the Chains of Hope contest. The other thing that we did this year that was really based off of something that was done at Mountain Point and developed by Melissa Roniseth and the counseling folks at Mountain Point a couple years ago was a self-referral. And we got this from our social emotional wellness ad hoc committee developing the policy, and our student reps were saying they just don't know resources or how do I get access to the folks that I need help with? What are the multiple ways? We need more ways. So this is one thing that during the pandemic when kids were virtual, and it was really rolled out prior to that at Mountain Point, was to get that up and running and giving kids another option to access. So our folks from Marcus Deniza will be talking about this here in a little bit, but I just wanted you to see what, and every school has one, and this is what the student support request is. Just talks about grade level, their name. They can get referred, they can even refer friends. Parents can use this as well. And then it just gives a bunch of different areas that they can get help with. Excellent, thank you. As we know also, we have adopted Panorama, our social emotional platform. This year, when we finally got that in place, it was in the middle of the year. And in consulting with Panorama, being the experts, and some other districts who had adopted other social emotional platforms and then rolled them out in the middle of the year, it was really, they had a hard time getting parent permission back to use the surveys. So the data wasn't clean and they just got a low response. So it really was recommended, don't do it this year. Roll it out at the start of next year so you can get all the parent permission at the start of the year when you're doing your handbooks and all of that to make that easier to get that increased response rate, because we do need active consent to do the surveys. Because not only are we doing surveys from a school level, where you can just see what concerns students are responding to, but really we want to be able to identify those students and then target them for intervention. We are still working, we were going to do a staff survey, but just through the development of that and going through the process, I don't know that we're going to do that this year, but we will do that next year for sure. And we will also be doing a community survey, so for families as well. The one thing that Panorama is also going to do is we not only are doing the climate surveys and the SEL surveys, but we did purchase the check-in, which allows us to do check-ins on students and run little, I guess, smaller surveys at any school, at any time, as many times as we want, and target different areas. And I think where this will really come in is in the event, or is in the aftermath of a crisis, is to be able to do a pulse check and then to really identify those students that are struggling. It's just another way to get access to our kiddos to provide more supports. We are also have our mindfulness rooms and activities that we're doing on every campus. Again, we still have our Teen Lifeline hotline on all of our school IDs, so students have access to that. We have mentor days and programs in the district. Mountain Point Women's Mentor Day, you're gonna hear about that, I know, at the board meeting. That was it started with Dr. Keller and has continued. They just had it in March. We also had a men's mentor day at Mountain Point. We have not done that in a few years, and also in talking with the folks that helped develop that, the idea was we always wanted to do it district-wide. So we started with Mountain Point. The next year, one year we added Marcos, and then we planned to add Desert Vista, and every school after that, then COVID hit. So we haven't done it, but in talking with them was like, let's do a district-wide. So those conversations, we want to do one next year. The goal is to do one for men and then also have one for women as well. Tempe High and others have reached out to talk about doing their own, and have helped. We've been in conversation with that, so if each school wants to do it, great, but we're also looking to try to do something district-wide to bring our students together. And then this year we've really focused on promoting our resources at every school. And Eric Lauer and our mindfulness leads and our activity leads have really worked hard to implement monthly themes that were developed, started with Eric a couple years ago. We really put them into place for this year, and our youth specialists have been really integral in developing those activities as part of the Sandy Hook Promise that they do, and really trying to integrate that, and really trying to have that theme so that every school is getting something and has activities. And Nellie Mullins, Kelly Gardner, Megan Sterling, Warren Cole, they have been fantastic in helping us develop wallpapers, social media campaigns. They've done a couple of Instagram takeovers. So just trying to get the message out. And you're gonna see some examples now of the wallpapers. So this went out, this was our first one that was created, and this went out in September. So this was pushed out to every student's computer, and they weren't allowed to change it. So when they logged in and signed back in, this was their wallpaper. This was November to talk about substance free and drugs. And then in December, again, it's not just wellness, we talk about food and nutrition. So working with food and nutrition, we helped create this one. And in January, we did a mindfulness that showed each mindfulness room, because Nellie also figured out with the district is how we could push it out to each school individually. So moving forward with advance notice, we can start to target different things at each school that be specific. Now I'm going to turn over to Don Milovich, Aaron Smith, and then Tristan Rivas, and then Maya Arroyo, so to hear what's happening at each of our schools.
Good evening. Well, I'm very happy to share with you some information about our rollout of our ICRP risk assessments. This was an undertaking for us. It was a departure on how we did business in the past. We were accustomed to bringing in mobile crisis units and kind of outsourcing that work with students. And through the implementation of this initiative and the use of the assessment tool, we now have staff trained across many disciplines to carry out this risk assessment function and take care of that in-house. Not that we wouldn't use a crisis mobile unit, because we still will when we feel that there's a need, but we're able to meet the needs of our students a little quicker and take care of business on a daily basis. So this begins with a referral, and the referral can be a student who comes in and refers themselves, who is having some unsafe thoughts. This could be a teacher who discovers or has a sense about something. It could be a friend. It could be a parent. I do need to give a shout out to the teachers out there, the culture on our campus, and I'm sure this is as so across the district. They've been amazing. They walk students down in between classes. They make sure that they are doing a physical, warm handoff when there is a concern. So it's really understood across the campuses that this is everybody's business. So after we meet with a student, it's high urgency. This is what takes precedence right now. And one of the differences in using this assessment tool is that it is done in pairs. So we work with a team of 2, and we collaborate across the disciplines, which is really my favorite part. Our counselors will work with a psychologist or our Tempe youth specialist through Care 7, or a social worker, behavior interventionist, and so we pair up with who is available, and we secure that very quickly. And the tool itself provides the consistency that we need across the district. It's also structured so that the questions that bring about some discussion allow us to uncover a lot of information that we might otherwise learn if we didn't use this guided form. And not that we're just drilling questions out. The questions provide a backdrop for getting some conversation going. And we might linger in some places in the assessment a little longer. It allows us to take a bit of a social history. We can ascertain whether there are weapons. It's pretty systematic to help us really understand how deep this despair is for this student. So that's really our goal, is we want to get closer to the student's experience. And we want to understand from their worldview what it is that they're feeling. This also allows us to create a partnership with the parent, because calling home, most times a parent is asked to come to campus. This is serious business, right? So allowing us to visit with the parent, we have very, very grateful parents, because sometimes as things go, there's a bit of a denial system, and the parent might not really realize that this student was in the space that they're in. So we work with the parent, we work on some aftercare plans, whether it's referral to a higher level of care through some programs that we will learn about in a few minutes. We work with Care 7, and we create safety plans, and so we then have a very structured and formal way of moving forward with the student, and then also for our follow-up. Documentation is very, very important, so we have a system for documentation and for housing all of our suicide assessments. And I would say the highlights are really that in working now in pairs and that collaboration, we have 2 sets of eyes on a student, and we see different things. This moves a little bit faster, so we're more efficient with this process. And then I would say that the fact that we just have this structure across the district that is helping us to grow. We have our bumps along the way. I mean, we always have to be concerned with ethics, and we have some conversations going as we continue to work on the ethics components of some of our risk assessments. We never want to negate or say that a student is at low risk, when we always are wanting to create an environment where we are making sure that a student's safety is of the utmost importance. And so we're continuing these conversations to fine-tune our processes and our tool, and it's been a very, very good initiative that we are using this in our district.
My turn. Hello. hope you all are well, since we're talking about wellness and social emotional stuff. Just have to check in. Just got to check in. Okay. So thanks for having us this evening. I am from Marcos Deniza. I'm the counseling department lead, and I'm here to talk about our student response team and what that means to us. And so to piggyback on a lot of the stuff that Don talked about, we have this referral process. And so there's the student referral as well as the adult referral. And so staff can refer students, students can refer students. And so when those come in, we immediately triage that student. Like Don said, it takes first priority. We immediately help that student and get what they need. And then after that, we then kind of triage how we can help. But then we meet weekly as a student response team, which encompasses many, many individuals on campus, from administrators to all counselors, youth specialists, academic interventionists, dropout prevention, SSC coordinator. I mean, it's a huge team of people, and we meet to discuss every single referral that comes in to make sure we have done everything we can for that student. It is very important because we have to make sure we have follow through. We have we really reached out to all the resources for that student? It just keeps the conversation going. You need to bring the team together to make sure that student knows their resources and knows who to reach out to, right? But also, I just have to introduce Tristan Rivas, right down there. We're separated, but there she is. She is absolutely amazing. I have to say that. We would absolutely be lost without her at Marcos. This is her 3rd year, I believe, at Marcos. This is my 1st year working with her, and she is our compass. We go to her for all things fabulous at Marcos in terms of working with kids, because she is our guide. She helps supports us. We work with her on the risk assessments that we need to do. She teaches us every day something new that we need to know to help students. And so we really, really have loved working with her, and you're not allowed to take her away from us. So, but she has been an instrumental piece of this student response team, which is, we couldn't do it without the referrals. And so it's getting the word out to students to know the referral is there, which we have those trusted adult signs, which I think a lot of the campuses do, as well as the adult ones. So one thing we're gonna focus on next year is really focusing more on getting that referral code out to students better. We've been fortunate that our business teacher, Heather Castagnon, has worked with her DECA students to focus on that this year and getting the word out. It has been wonderful to work with her team. These kids have done a fabulous job of doing lunch activities, stuff around campus. It's been really cool. And they just went to their, I forget what you call it, state or something like that, and they presented all their stuff and did a great job. So we were fortunate to have kids involved with this process as well. Our staff has been phenomenal with referring kids. It really shows the relationship they build with their students at Marcos Deniza. They really take the time to talk with their students and then immediately get them help if needed, whether it's the referral code, warm handoff, you know, et cetera. But really, it's that team effort that we're trying to build in the systems of support, right? So the counselor is the first go-to. When a referral comes in, the counselor triages that, you know, works with that student, and if they can help that student, they do. If we need to bring in the big guns with Tristan, then we bring her in and she helps support us. And so it's really just this collaborative, awesome stuff that we're doing. So I'm excited. There's room for improvement, of course. We will work with Ron and Stacy to kind of fine tune that MTSS process and make sure we're meeting all the needs of all of our students. But I'm excited for where we're headed. The last thing is a video that Jill Callender and Brian Blackwelder created, who are our academic interventionists in dropout prevention, to get the word out to students about the referral. This was done at the beginning of the year. It's kind of fun. So please enjoy.
The last couple of years have been hard. Really hard.
Really hard.
Really hard.
Like really hard. Disruption of our normal lives has brought a lot of issues to the surface for many people.
If you are struggling with anxiety, depression, or any other emotional issue, you're not alone.
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone. There are trained people here at Marcos who want to help. If you or someone you care about is struggling, talk to a staff member who can get you to the right person.
If you are uncomfortable with that, you can find this QR code on my door.
Or 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 on any teacher's door throughout campus.
Once you click on the link, it'll take you to this form where you can quickly answer a few short questions. Once you hit submit, it'll go straight to the counseling department and someone will get back to you right away.
We are here. Please don't feel like you have to face this alone.
So good stuff, all right? And so we're going to keep carrying that forward. I'm going to put her on the spot briefly, but I do want to let Tristan speak for herself, her fabulous self, and let her kind of talk about all the great things that she has been doing in her important role as a youth specialist.
So as an extension of the city's crisis response team on campus, my primary role there, especially in these crisis situations, is safety and stabilization of the student. So on the ICRP document that Dawn mentioned, if I get to question number 2, which is, are you having thoughts of suicide or self-harm right now? And that answer is yes, and they disclose a plan to me. To be completely honest, I pause there and I contact the parent and we move forward with finding bed availability and really prioritizing that safety and stabilization piece. The rest of it typically, while I'm waiting for the parent to arrive to campus, that is when we can kind of go into the rest of it. I can get some more information about what it is that is leading the student to crisis at that time. But a lot of it is with the follow-up and the postvention. That's when a lot of the other good stuff comes into place. But as I think for most youth specialists, the priority really is just that stabilization piece for students. And it's been amazing working at Marcos with all the staff. I think that it really is a comprehensive team. I never at any point feel like I'm a one-man show trying to run it. I think that there's a lot of collaboration and constant communication among all venues. And I think that the weekly meetings that Erin mentioned is really helpful in that too, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, aware of each student. And that way, if there's something going on in one tier, we can address it in the other tiers.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, I'm next. Good evening. I'm really privileged to be here to really represent the hard work that the staff has done at McClintock. I'm fighting laryngitis, so I'm glad I have a mic. When working with the toolkit, well-being toolkit, and the Charger Way. So I'd like to start with the toolkit. What this is and what we did was we proactively tried to plan ahead for what students were going to need when they came back from COVID. The longer we were away, the more worried we were. And so we got together and worked on a toolkit. I don't know, maybe you can bring it up there. So basically, it just started off with, hey, teachers, kind of, let's remember that students are coming back in a different capacity. They've been away from their friends, the socialization. Many have experienced deaths, perhaps, in the families, and just let's be ready. So we started with that and just a whole bunch of numbers. But really what this is about was streamlining all of the resources and the trainings and the workshops that teachers were given to be able to really bring it into the classroom. Like, what can you do with what you've learned, or maybe what just needed to be reminded, right? We had to remind teachers that back to basics, basically. So if you scroll, what this toolkit is, it consists of, again, like changes and things that happen with students, perhaps. But if you scroll a little bit lower, there, the red, those are kind of the chapters that we are working on. And we are not, as admin, giving it to teachers. It is teachers giving it to us. So we coordinated, we collaborated, we collected and compiled. So we've only done the first 3 so far, and it's building and sustaining relationships, building resiliency through social and emotional learning, and then supporting behaviors. Nothing new, it's everything that you've heard so far here. But again, what does this mean and what can we do in the classroom? So if you look at the first one, building and sustaining relationships, if you scroll a little. So there are several bullet points as to what this could look like. And so the first one you see is sense of community. And then the next one I believe is positivity, building familiarity. So we just basically went to our department leaders and said, hey, let's talk about this. And what we'd like you to do is to go back to your departments and ask your teachers, what do you do to build familiarity? What do you do for positivity? What do you do to build these relationships? So teachers just started sharing everything they do, and then they had to kind of practice it with each other. So we would do it as admin with our leadership team, and then they'd go back and do it with their teachers, and then the teachers would do it in the classrooms. And some really great ideas came, things that, you know, I wouldn't have thought of, like a teacher compiles a playlist of their favorite songs, and you know, and we'll play it throughout, or not maybe throughout the lesson, but towards the end of the lesson, just little things. So that's the first chapter. The second chapter was on, if you can scroll, building resiliency through social emotional learning. And you can keep scrolling, I think. And then we also provided just community resources, more resources at the end of every chapter. The second chapter, the same thing. We went back to teachers, building resiliency, and said, hey, what are some of the things that you do? And really interesting, you know, they are the masters in the classroom and the masters in their profession. So it really is just, hey, share what you do. Because for some teachers, it comes very naturally. And for others, they have to learn it from their colleagues. So this has really been a great exercise and practice that we've been doing. And I like there's one there that talks about coping skills, and they ask teachers, what are some of the things you do? And teachers started saying, well, I give them silent reflection. Just sit down and just reflect, and I want you to think about A, B, or C. Drawing, writing, teachers just have papers at the back of the classroom just to allow students to go and pick something to do during that time. The third chapter is really supporting behavior. This is one that we concentrated on because we were worried as to how we were going to find our students once they came back to campus. And as I said previously, it was about bringing it back to basics. And so we need to teach the behaviors again. Let's start from the beginning, let's teach behaviors. And so with that, we went to what do we expect from a charger? Well, what do we expect all students to know, to behave and to know as a charger? So in this chapter, we created the Charger Way. So if you want to flip to the Charger Way, that was the other slide. So, excuse me, the Charger Way was a group of teachers that came together. There was representation from every department, and they worked with Adam Johnson and Jermaine Whitaker, and kind of just, there's a Charger Way. And they said, this group of teachers, okay, what does it mean to be a charger? If you're a charger, we expect you to show respect to others. It goes with our district's core values, right? And to act with integrity and strive for academic excellence and responsibility and take pride in the campus and the community. So this took a little bit to get together because the teachers really wanted to be specific on what it means to respect others. So the red is that definition of what that means. And so now this is what we do, this is what we say. It's not the Charger Way. It's hung in every classroom. And you know you're going in the right direction when you hear students telling students, that's not the Charger Way. And so now we're going with that, and that's our motto, and we're getting t-shirts made, just the Charger Way, just to have it in their face and to remind them that this is who we are and to take pride in what we do.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Next thing is our Bring Change to Mind clubs. Through our social emotional wellness ad hoc committee, we talked about how do we destigmatize, how do we get the word out, how do students support other students. And Desert Vista and Mountain Point, well, every school was represented with student representation, but Desert Vista had Bring Change to Mind and Mountain Point had Pride Strong. And one suggestion that the students had was, let's be consistent if we can across the district. So we brought the idea to Mountain Point to become a Bring Change to Mind club, which they accepted. And Sadie Goldman is the president of that as we said, she was not able to be here. So we have Meredith Morrissey, who is the club sponsor.
Thank you. Sadie was very excited to be asked to share and sad that she can't be here. So she wrote something, and I'm going to read it as if I'm her. Good evening, Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, and members of the board. Thank you for having me here tonight to discuss the Mountain Point Bring Change to Mind Club. Mountain Point made the transition from Pride Strong to BC2M, Bring Change to Mind, during the fall of 2021. Every week, we host a new activity. So far, we have created happiness jars, vision boards, stress balls, canvas and rock paintings, while conducting conversations surrounding mental health. We discuss anxiety, self-care, and radical acceptance. Bring Change to Mind offers its members a respite after a long day at school. In February, we successfully conducted Bring Change to Mind Week, which highlighted collaborative power. Throughout the week, students participated in destigmatizing mental illness by signing the Bring Change to Mind pledge, sharing solutions for improving our school climate, and even bringing monetary donations for the national organization. Lastly, we are excited to begin our process of ordering Bring Change to Mind t-shirts. We plan on partnering with One Day at a Time, which is Mountain Point's community service club, to tie-dye the shirts and share with the members of the Pride. So thank you for your time, says Sadie. I have, Ron Denny originally started Pride Strong at Mountain Point, and I've been working with him since, and I've worked with Sadie all 4 years, and she's absolutely amazing, as I'm sure some of you know who know her. And so she and the group created a goal, I think, along with Desert Vista, to help every school on campus have a Bring Change to Mind club. It used to be just a mental health club, but now that we're with Bring Change to Mind nationally, they have tons of resources, and it's really great. So even though Sadie is graduating this year and headed to U of A Honors College, she has committed to continuing our district reach that goal, and will be a resource to us, I have no doubt, throughout our time down in Tucson. So thank you.
We have our district Student Social Emotional Wellness Advisory Committee. We've had quarterly meetings. We have another one coming up, and we have parents, staff members, and students on there, as well as agency representation. This year, it's been a lot of just sharing information, but also really getting their take. Moving forward, we do have a plan to get their advice on a lot of different things that we are putting forward. Also wanted to highlight Desert Vista's Student Social Emotional Wellness Committee, which is led by Erica Braun and representation from many of the clubs on Desert Vista's campus. And as I mentioned earlier, they've been meeting every month. They are also planning a wellness assembly and a resource fair on April 29th. That will be a special assembly schedule. And they've been working with Assistant Principal Snyder, Principal Dignan, Amy Hickel, the guidance department lead, school counseling department lead, excuse me, and Rang Lee, the youth specialist that is there, as advisors, as well as the students are really putting this great event together. And I know we're getting short on time, so I'm going to kind of throw here. Dr. Boyle, and then Mr. Huffine.
Okay, so study skills curriculum. We are revamping the study skills courses for our students in special education, and we have had a cadre committee of teachers from every single campus get together. Today was our last day together, and we've been planning a framework for that course. We want it to be very specific to student needs, not only for executive functioning, but we have built in the ADE SEL competencies. And so we chose 3 out of those 5 competencies to include the self-management, the self-awareness, and the responsible decision-making. If you've been on that website, you see the crosswalk from different content areas with the SEL competencies. And so that's what we're using to embed into that study skills course.
We also have created a student focus group based on those restorative practices that I mentioned earlier. We have met, and by we I mean Dr. Wilson, Mr. McDonald, and myself, with multiple students from all campuses in a virtual meeting. That was one of the most interesting and really most enjoyable virtual meetings that I've been a part of. No offense to the COVID meetings, but you know, one of the things that we asked them is, you know, their perspective on, and origins of the disruptive behaviors that were going on campus. We showed them the graphs of what the suspensions have been throughout the first semester, and we just asked them, what do they feel is the cause of this? And they had some very, very interesting answers. They offered some solutions. They really wanted to place a strong emphasis on structure, on positive alternatives at lunch, similar to what DV is going to do on April 29th with their Wellness Day. And like I said, it was probably one of the most enjoyable simply because it was the students that were offering really their answers to what could be done. And we're going to have another meeting in the next couple weeks, and we will continue this, giving them a voice.
Great, thank you so much. So at this time, I'm very, very sorry, but I have to cut off the presentation to allow questions from the board since we start our meeting, our formal meeting at 7. If that's okay, Mr. Denny.
Yes.
All right, we're going to start with Vice President Montero.
Do you want to go first? No. Okay. Well, before we get to questions, I do briefly just want to say thank you to each and every one of you and to all of those that might be watching out there. You know, this truly does take every single person in our district. We've come a long way from where we originally started last year with the ad hoc committee, and I'm really proud of all the work that each of you have done. I know it's been really tough coming out of the pandemic, coming back to school in person, you know, constantly changing the constantly changing needs and circumstances that have happened. It hasn't been easy, so thank you so much. I know I have a lot of questions, and so I'll probably just follow up with you, Mr. Denny, later on. But one of the questions I did have, and I think we talked a lot about the ways that we have empowered our staff to support our students, and turning more specifically to how we empower our students to support our students. And I think one of the things that you know, that stuck out was the self-referral form with Marcos in that video. That was amazing. And I think, you know, having that, addressing that education piece with our students as well, and having them be able to, you know, I think we've talked about this earlier, maybe working with our incoming freshman classes to have that safe talk training or conversation so that, you know, those students are able to kind of pick up on some of their signs with their friends or siblings, and be able to have those conversations, because I think, and speaking from personal experience, a lot of the times when a student is struggling, they'll go to, you know, someone they're close with, you know, a trusted friend or whoever that might be. And a lot of the times I think the students take that burden on themselves, don't know how to react a lot of the times, and might be kind of hesitant to be able to go and you know, either use that referral form or go speak to a teacher, you know, kind of out of that fear, out of that stigma that we have there. And so what are some of those ways that we're addressing that and fostering those conversations with our students?
I think different schools are doing different things right now. I know that there has been a lot of talk, and we've been about boot camps. You know, are they're onboarding for the 9th graders, and doing education that way. You know, I know Mountain Point just did an assembly yesterday for their juniors, and they're meeting with every class and talking about those kind of things, and then building in those social-emotional wellness education pieces. But I think Safe Talk is definitely a place where we could start, and starting targeted groups, just because we need more trainers right now, but the goal of to get everybody there. And I think working with the schools to embed those lessons in ACT Lab throughout the year. And I know that's what the different student groups are trying to do, especially, you know, at Desert Vista and at Mountain Point and all of our schools, is trying to build those in. But that's definitely a focus. That's our next level, is where we go for the students.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, Member Hodge.
Okay, thank you. I had a question. I was trying to get to you earlier, Dr. Boyle, to ask you this like in the middle of it. My question was about when you talk about restorative justice for special needs, how is that different and how are you going far and beyond when it comes to restorative justice, when it comes to special need versus the general population? How does that look?
I would say right now it's in our infancy for our department. I think some of our student service coordinators are just getting familiar with the practice. I know that, like I said, John Shirk at McClintock has been someone that is a huge skill base for him. And so I'm a little excited to see where he goes with it and then kind of move on with our other sites to put better practices in. But right now, I think it's just looking at really getting the students to recognize their behavior and recognize how it's affecting other people, and then being able to, react appropriately to that. So it's still in our infancy, but definitely something we can work on.
Thank you. My next question is the active facts. Is that something that because I know that we talk about there's different parts of people who get it, but also I'm kind of concerned because majority of our students only have interaction with their teachers. Is there any way that they can have maybe a shortened version of it in orientations so they can have at least something to look for, like guidelines and stuff, when orientation is done through the beginning of the school year? That was just a question I had. Second, Challenge Day. Are we ever thinking about bringing Challenge Days back? Because I think that was another way to highlight the kids. I even got a lot out of Challenge Day, so I think that's something that, now maybe bringing them back together with that time of interaction. That was huh? Oh my gosh, so somebody want to explain to her what Challenge Day is? Would you like to explain, or anybody want to explain what Challenge Day is? Go ahead. Any one of you guys.
Challenge Day is where, as I understand it, is really where we're bringing students together, and they start the day off kind of getting to know each other, and it's very basic, surface level, and then throughout the day it keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it culminates in one of the primary thing is the cross the line activity. And really what they're doing is they are calling out, the facilitator is, if you've experienced XYZ, if you've done, or have a family member who has, somebody's died in your family, the kids, then you walk across the line. And it starts off basic, then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And what you find is the goal of that is to really show everybody that you are more alike than you are different. And it shows them that piece of it. It's a super powerful and emotional experience. And it takes a lot of folks to put that on, not only the company, but the bigger part is the response after. And having counselors and support people available not only to deal with right away, but then the ongoing support. But it's really a powerful experience for people to have.
Thank you. My last question is, I saw that you had the You're Not Alone wallpaper. I was wondering, when we have I know that you did it for a period of time, but if something happens like a crisis at a school, can they put that back up as a wallpaper, like it was situation, this happened like at Desert Vista, why that should be maybe a wallpaper for a week to keep reminding our students that they're not alone and that they have help out there.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, and my last thing is I want to thank you for taking responsibility for the disconnect or the loopholes that we had. I think that for you to take that responsibility, thank you, but I think it's on all of us. So even though you do take that responsibility, I share in it, and I think everybody else will too. So thank you for that, though. And I had a chance to talk to some Desert Vista students, but I'll let everybody else talk. I don't want to keep continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Member James.
Thank you for this presentation. There's so much information. I feel like we need a follow-up study session just to get it all in. And I want to thank Vice President Montero for all of his work here. Watching him campaigning to all he's accomplished is just huge. And I know he can't do it without the support of the district and all of you, but it's just really exciting to be here today. I would like to follow up on that teacher training that Board Member Hodge was talking about, just from my personal experience. I'm in a different, I'm not a core classroom teacher, I teach music. And in my current job, I'm traveling to 7 schools. I have 7 different environments, different processes, and so on. And we have less travelers in the high school, for sure, but as Board Member Hodge was saying, we have teachers who could be that traveling teacher that is that trusted adult. And to have easy access to resources and to make sure that all of our teachers have that training or access to resources is so vital. I found myself in a situation recently with a student who told me he didn't feel like he should be alive. And 23 years later, I'm going, okay, what's the process at this school? How do I do this? And, you know, we got the referrals, and I felt as a mom, as an adult, going, man, what do kids feel like when their peers come to them with these? Because I felt like, what is he going to think when he sees me the next day, the next class? Is he going to be upset with me? And I have a fully developed brain, I think. You know, like I can't imagine being a child. And I look at these kids and I think how amazing they are. And they're amazing also because we have that support in our district. We have these amazing teachers and staff members. So with that, I do also appreciate your focus on the classified staff because they are also very trusted adults in our buildings that are very invested in our kids. So the training piece, I'm really excited to hear how that's going to be implemented. And again, I feel like we're on the same wavelength here, Board Member Hodge, because the resources, it's also one of those things, we get these trainings, right, from different types of seizures, EpiPens, suicide prevention, and then where are the resources? So thinking, maybe talking and brainstorming with staff, like what would be helpful? What's the best way to access these things? Maybe you don't always have access to your computer at that point. Is there something like a flip chart like we have for lockdowns, you know, and lockouts, differences for that? Brainstorming what would be helpful in, you know, just to have on your desk, on your wall, something that we can refer back to. Because it was really very timely, again, like to have this experience and then look at this study session and go, and hearing you talk about that proactively. I'm very happy to hear that you're working on that training aspect. But yes, I think staff feedback would be really vital about what would be helpful in those situations, what educators, classified staff might need a little. Are we overlooking potentially a traveler or somebody who's not consistently on campus? But yeah, I think this is really heartening to see, and I appreciate everything you all are doing. And I can't wait for my son to be at Marcos. I'll just close with that.
Thank you.
Really quick, I'm going to do it rapid fire style. I normally don't do this with compounded questions, but and just comments to kind of consider moving forward as we're looking at all of this. And I'd love to dig in, you know, we're talking about kind of the ethics and the breakdown, and especially when it involves students and kind of the confidentiality pieces there. But I also have concerns too about particular LGBTQ students who come forward and share and express, and the environment at home might not be conducive to that. And so I'd love to dig in deeper with y'all when we have more time on those pieces. But also too is looking at the cultural challenges and overcoming the taboo with each individual families and meeting them where they are with respect to that, because I know, at least for my family in particular, we've run into those challenges with our own mental health and whatnot. So that piece there, as well as I don't know how best to look at this through when it comes to the integration pieces when we're looking at the PD and we're looking at our traditional models of education. And one of the things I know we've all been kind of talking about generally, and I know Mr. Jenner, we've talked about this too, is going away from the viewing as distinct, but also incorporating them into trauma-informed teaching. That way it's part of what we do innately rather than as a distinct, yes, we need to do this. That way it's, you know, I feel like more comprehensive, well-rounded when we're from the outset looking at it from trauma-informed teaching. But I digress on that. And then finally too is, I love all the forums. These are great and I think a huge resource to our students and our families. My only question with respect to this is, are we making it accessible to non-English families? And I know while we have limited, I know I harp on this all the time, but while I know we have a limited number of our families, I want to make sure that they're also being reached and they're, and this is accessible to them. But I will pass it back to Vice President Montero.
Okay. I know we only have 5 minutes, so I'll try and go quickly. One question I did have, I know we were talking quite a bit about this, the focus on the warm handoff, you know, with the staff walking down, that in-person-to-person interaction. I know we were very intentional about including this in the policy, and I'm curious about how this is kind of manifested in practice when it comes to that warm handoff of matching those students that, you know, with that adult that has similar lived experiences, kind of piggybacking off of President Garcia's point, you know, with your students of color, with our LGBTQ plus students, and where possible, being able to match those students with that someone that kind of has those similar lived experiences and connect with them on that level. Is you know, how is that manifested in practice?
I think it's going to look differently at different places. I mean, when we have a student in crisis and we're doing a warm handoff in a crisis or a suicide type of situation, it's about safety and stability, as Tristan had said. You know, so that's the first piece of that. But I think it's also knowing our students. And if again, most our students are going to go to that trusted adult in most situations, or most often that's a teacher or other staff member. And I think looking to them to help pair that piece or giving that insight when they do that warm handoff. But I think if that's in that crisis situation, my thing would be stability, safety, and then the ongoing piece is trying to, as you get to the why and get to know the student more, would be what do they need? Who might have that lived experience? Who do they match well with? Because some of our students aren't going to match well with me all the time, and I might be their main person, but there is somebody else within our department or within the district or something like that that can better meet the needs of that student. So I think that's an ongoing thing that we definitely need to look at and keep working on.
Vice President Montero, I think it's a little tricky too. We have to understand that sometimes our staff members don't feel comfortable enough to share their shared experiences or their ACEs, nor maybe their sexual preference or things of that nature. So though we're doing our very best to learn about our staff and try to match those up, it's not always as possible because of protected pieces or even fear and things of that nature, as President Montero or President Garcia spoke about. Some of the things that are going on in our House bills and Senate bills with the LGBTQ and transgender folks. So we need to continue to work on that, but again, as we continue to build a safe environment for all, I think we'll be able to match those students up with our staff better.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, Member Hodge, real quick.
Real quick, I was with Judge Souls, who's in the back. That's one of our judges, so welcome, Judge Soul. We were together at a memorial, and she brought something that I thought we should bring up, is that we miss some of the kids who look and act normal after something happens on their staff. Maybe if they were friends, we should try to do a call out to the kids who have had, say, we lost a student. If you're friends with them, maybe you can meet in room 20, so actually meet them where they're at, because a lot of the students won't come out and say they're in hurt or in pain. So that's something I just wanted to bring in there that she brought to me, so thank you.
Yes, and that is actually part of the crisis training that we're doing tomorrow and on Friday, and that bigger picture. We know that that is definitely a need, and getting more skills for our folks, including myself, to be able to provide those services and those interventions to those students.
All right, wrapping up with Vice President Montero.
One more quick question. I know we touched on this earlier, and I know it's the tough conversation that I think we continue to have specifically around the postvention. I know that was something we intentionally put in the policy, and I think we've had a lot of struggles with, especially recently. I've taken the time to try and figure out kind of what the sentiment is around with our students and staff about what that feeling is, and there's a lot of feelings of a disconnect. I don't know where that disconnect comes from, but there's the way that we respond to this type of crisis. I think when we talk about especially supporting those students that aren't going to have red flags and aren't showing those signs, I think that's one of the biggest struggles we have with this is we have a lot of these systems in place, but we also have to figure out ways that we can support those students that those signs aren't going to show up. And I think that comes with the culture that we have on campus, and there's that fear of talking about suicide and death, and it's a very touchy subject. And I know you said that you're working with Care 7 and kind of building off of having a more comprehensive postvention strategy. And I was going to ask kind of what that is, but I know running out of time, so I'll follow up with you on that. But again, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Just if you would, we did miss a handful of slides. I think it's going to be very important you look at what we're doing with the Youth, Family, and Faith grants. Also, Care 7, we missed the slides of all of our community partners. We want to thank all of them as well. And please ask us for any questions. I just want to thank the panel here tonight. This is just 16 of some of the most amazing people we have on our campuses. There are a lot more. We just had to not fill up the governing board room. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. All right, we will recess for 4 minutes and reconvene at 7:05. 7:06, we're reconvening this meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Member James, followed by a moment of silence, in particular for the TUHSD student who passed recently, and for privacy reasons we'll not be saying name, but also for a community member who passed, CJ Brittle, who's a big part of all of our lives here on the dais and in the community, followed by a land acknowledgement by Megan Sterling. So if we can please rise for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance
Thank you.
Tempe Union High School District acknowledges that our community of schools is located on the ancestral lands of the Akmol Autumn, Pima, and P-Posh Maricopa indigenous peoples who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. With this land acknowledgement, the district formally recognizes that the traditional care and keeping of these lands by indigenous peoples allow us to be here today.
Thank you so much, Megan Sterling, and thank you, Member James. All right, next on the agenda, we have a report from Superintendent Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, executive team, our visiting audience, and our viewing and listening audience. We had scheduled for our Desert Vista award-winning speech and debate to be here, but we're going to have to do that next board meeting in 2 weeks. So the coach and those individuals are present for that recognition. It's noteworthy, and so we want to do this properly. However, we have something that's equally as important, and that is with our Women's Mentor Day at Mountain Point High School, and we have a lot of wonderful representatives from Mountain Point High School, and I want to ask that they come up because they will be doing the honors and presentations. And so Principal, what is your name? Banks. There you go. I'm getting old now, so it's like I had a little oxygen deprivation there. So Principal Banks, Beatrice Williams, why don't you come on up? Meredith Morrissey, there you are. You've been here for quite a while. And Marisol Blackmon. And I would be remiss if I didn't include or at least mention, and maybe that's part of your presentation, Dr. Keller. Who else? Shoshana. I just was given these names. Shoshana, come on up.
He's not going to forget.
And then Dr. Keller, because I know you had a big role in this because you were as assistant principal of academics for Mountain Point for a number of years. Yes. So I better hand it off to you guys. So thank you for being here.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Mendeville. I remembered. President Garcia, the board, the executive team, and the audience. Good evening. We had the pleasure of hosting the 17th Annual Women's Mentor Day at Mountain Point on March 2nd. Women's Mentor Day was created by Dr. Keller, who's now the Executive Director of Human Resources. And we absolutely adore Dr. Keller and love that she brought this to us. We have we've amped it up a little bit, but we still have a good time. We have about 150 to 200 young ladies on our campus, and then we invite mentors from the community, women in different walks of life. In the past, we've had judges. This year we had entrepreneurs. I'll have Ms. Williams speak a little bit more to that. But it's great to be able to work with these young ladies, really show them where we've all come from, so that they can see a little piece of us and they don't just see that, hey, she's the principal, but they get to see, oh, she walked this walk too, or these ladies behind me have done some amazing things in their lives, and how can I emulate that or become that? So Again, it is a pleasure for us to host this event for our girls. It is something that they love every single year. It's wonderful to watch them really grow and flourish in this and bond with one another, make vision boards for their future, because we thought that was an important piece to add in at the end of the day. But I'll give it over to Ms. Williams, because she's sometimes a better speaker than I am. So there we go.
Same people. We always say to the students, wrong black ladies, so that's what we say to the students. So I first off would be remiss to not thank Warren Cole. He came in and what we've added, Dr. Kellers, we have Warren Cole come in and interview our female staff, and he always asks an intriguing question, and he makes a video for us that, again, Warren Cole always makes you cry. So, again, this video made me cry, but it's saying that, so this allows all of our female staff members to get involved. We got a big response. We had about 10 to 15 of our female staff members to come down and do the interview. Amber was one of them. So we just love this day. This is probably, besides graduation, is probably one of my favorite days to plan. And I can't do it without this crew that's standing behind me. They push and they say, let's do it. And we rolled with it. And it always turns out to be, we stress about it. And then we sit there and we was like, Meredith was like, man, this is kind of running itself. So, but that's what happens when students have a good time. That's when they're engaged, and then we have student leaders that help out. This is what happens when students have a good time. So, again, without these ladies behind me, this would never be possible.
Last thing, I promise. Good evening. I think this year was the first year that we had such profound feedback from the adult mentors who came in to speak, who enjoyed it just as much as the girls did, and were asking us, can we please come back next year? Because the girls on campus already know. It's like, again, after prom, like one of the most anticipated events of the year. So, but this year, again, the adults just, I think everyone was just so blessed. They were on their social media, kind of putting Mountain Point out there, saying they have this wonderful experience. Even the culinary students, oh my gosh, it was like 5-star service. It was just excellence, their kindness. So just allowing the students there to flourish as well. It was absolutely amazing. So thank you for planting that seed, and thank you all for your support that you've added to in the years past, and hopefully come on for the next couple years and join us. So thank you.
That's all, folks.
And that concludes my report.
Just checking. Thank you, everyone. All right, next section we have is public comment. Dr. Mendel, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do, President Garcia. We have, I'm going to ask that Margaret Pratt please come to the microphone. Glad to see you, Margaret.
Good evening. I'm happy to see you as well. Thank you, Dr. Mendeville, board members. It's a pleasure to be here. I wear a few hats in our community, but this evening I'm here with you as a Tempe Union parent. So I came this evening to thank some Desert Vista staff, specifically Amy Hickle and Mickey Krebs. They are guidance counselors who do so much more than offer academic guidance. When our student faced some unexpected challenges, these counselors were professional, supportive, and they offered excellent guidance. It's impossible to pay them adequately for the excellent and very important work that they do, but we can thank them. Mr. Dignan is a great principal and leader, and what we know about great leaders is they make great teams. So I want to express my thanks to him for leading a wonderful school with so many great people in it that work for our kids every day. And specifically the staff and leaders who I have mentioned are really, on a personal note, the reason why I can send my student to Desert Vista, and when she faces challenges, which inevitably students will, I know that she's going to be supported and guided while she navigates them. So also, board members, thank you for your service and for serving our community in this volunteer role. I do also have to say a special thanks to board members James and Hodge for always being available, responsive, really connected to the community. I appreciate your work, your effort, and you do this job really well and work really hard, and I thank each of you for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That is it for public comment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. All right, now we are moving to consent agenda. All right, I move approval of items G1 through 11. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you so much, Member Hodge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have board policies for policy IKC, class rankings and grade point averages for first reading and adoption. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia and Vice President Montero, members of the board. This particular policy of IKC is actually kind of a cleanup policy from administration in teaching and learning, and you have it up. Okay, good. That it really confirms or validates what we actually do in the grade ranking and class ranking. So any classes that students take, well, their 8th grade may be summer, and they're our classes, they automatically start being factored in for class ranking but they have to be Tempe Union courses. So we've been doing that, that's been our practice, but the policy had not reflected that, and so that's just one of the recommendations from teaching and learning. I feel that it is and can be taken in a first reading today and be adopted. That would be our recommendation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. Board members, any thoughts, comments, or questions on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, I move approval of H1. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Member James. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, in business services, we have revision of the 2020-2021 annual financial report. Dr. Mendeville.
The financial report through March 15, it is recommended that we approve the revised fiscal year for the AFR for 2020-2021. As we have in the past, we have made revisions, and this is just one of those. Mrs. Mooms, do you want to respond to that or add anything else to that? But we recommend the approval of this.
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville, members of the board. This revision is being done to ensure that we properly captured all of our special education expenses, specifically in our transportation area.
Thank you so much. Board members, thoughts, comments, or questions on this item? All right, I move approval of I1. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Vice President Montero. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. All right, next, informational items financial report through March 15, 2022. As a reminder, this is an informational item only, and we'll move right along to communications from governing board members. Who would like to go first? Member James.
That was quick. All right, so first, we were able to attend an art show at the Tempe Historical Museum that featured a lot of our district artists. It was phenomenal. We have so many talented students, but we know that talent has to be guided by master teachers. And I'm looking at one, I saw some of your students' artwork, and it's just incredible to see what our kids do, but what our teachers guide them to do. And then we got to attend the Geeks Night Out, which was a blast. We saw some Tempe Union booths as well. There were staff from Tempe Elementary, so it's really great to see our community come together. We heard a marimba group from Kyrene. Just a lot of fun. So it's great to be able to do these community events again. And then I know tonight there was the Honors in Advanced Art Show at Corona, and that unfortunately was during our study session, but I hope that went well. I'm sure it did. And the choir concert tonight at Marcos. So just want to wish them all the best in their performance, Miss Evans. And yeah, I think that is it for me.
I'm trying to figure out, I can't remember what I'd done, so I was like trying to let everybody else go. I did attend the arts at Tempe. I'm so sorry, I'm tongue-tied, I don't know why. The art show at the Tempe Library, it was always, as always possible, we have the best artists in the district, in the state, in our district, so. And also I did the robotics online, because I couldn't make it out there, but it was so fun. I watched them play basketball, I watched them do, it was a really cool event to do, and I did, like you, I went to Greek night. It was fun. It was really, I ended up speaking to one person for almost 25 minutes, so I didn't really get a chance to do what I wanted to, but it was a great time, and our booths were phenomenal, and I just thank Tempe Union and Kyrene and the city of Tempe. And congratulations on the art shows for Corona, and also congratulations on all the performances we had in the district. And I'll say that I won my election. So that was the big thing that I did in this month too. So I guess maybe that's why my mind is kind of joked. But I just want to let everybody know tonight that even though I won my election at Tempe City Council, I am still 100% invested in what we do at Tempe Union. So that is not going to go away, and I'm only going to give 150% more. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Member Hodge. Vice President Montero.
Thank you. I don't have too much. First, I want to congratulate Member Hodge on your win. I know you put a lot of effort into it, and I don't know how you ran for election 2 years in a row. Props to you. It's a lot of effort. I also had the chance to stop by the art show with Dr. Mendeville and all my fellow board members, as well as Geeks Night Out, and got to talk with a lot of our students on various different science-related programs from across the district, and see all the amazing work that they're doing and engaging with our community. But before I'm done, I want to thank let me pull it up, our gifts and donations, before I forget. So we had $4,970 to Desert Vista from the Desert Vista Thunder Strings Booster Club. We had $1,548.35 to Corona from Chia Pin Chu, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and Anonymous. $16 to Desert Vista from Trisha Rothery. $10 to Marcos from Anonymous. $10 to Corona from Brett Nunn. And we had the donation of 3 escape room cases from Intel, estimated value of $5,766. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Vice President Montero. And congratulations, Member Hodge. Like, don't worry, we're still gonna keep you busy here. Just really quickly, reiterating to going out Geeks Night Out, the arts reception, as well as the Marcos Choir concert, and the Tempe All City Sports yesterday. Was that yesterday? This week is Monday. Sorry, this week has just been wild. But I was not able to make it to robotics, but was following them on Twitter because they are very on top of their Twitter. And they're just a great overall team, and I'm really excited for them as they continue to progress and do more. So, but I won't keep us here any longer.
Sorry, Garcia.
Yes.
It feels like a million years ago, but it was in between our board meetings. Also, shout out to Marcos for a phenomenal musical.
Yes.
Yes, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I think we all saw it. And my kids loved it. I loved it. It was wonderful. So I don't want to forget that.
Yes,
it does feel like a long time ago.
It does feel like a long time ago. I love their execution of dad jokes. So this was great. All right, Dr. Mendeville, any communications from you or the executive team?
Yes, and I would concur with I think our Marcos performing fine Arts and Performing Arts Academy is one of the best. I think the shows that they put on are rival what ASU does with their theater program, so kudos to Marcos. I also want to congratulate Ms. Hodge for her win. I know she puts forth a lot of effort. I couldn't do it, and so I don't know how you do it, but I concur, and you're amazing. But I just want to say a thanks and appreciation to all those who put forth that effort for the social emotional wellness presentation. A lot of hours went into that. A lot of, like I said earlier when I framed the discussion, it takes a village to take care of our children, and all of us have a part in that. And it's critical that we hold our village together, and that's not always easy, but when we do it together, it can make a huge difference. I want to pass it off to Mrs. Mielmans because I know she wanted to have a specific comment.
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville. I would just like to recognize one of my staff members that was included in the consent agenda on the personnel action. Karen Forsberg is retiring after 27 years with the district. Her first 5 years she was with the purchasing department, and then one of the first good decisions that I made as the assistant superintendent for business services was I hired her as my administrative assistant. We've worked side by side for 22 years now, and she has been a huge part of the success of my department. She has been the driving force regarding our cell tower program, which initially started before we were in the department at $87,500 for 15 years. We're currently getting $125,000 for 5 years. That has generated over the last 10 years $5 million for the district. She's also been extremely involved in all of our intergovernmental agreements, our memorandums of understanding, all of our contracts that include all the student activities as far as the prom venues and the DJs and the camps and the traveling to different states for our athletics. And she has always put doing what's right for our students first. And I just want to publicly thank her for everything that she has done.
We'll hire her part-time if she wants to come back.
No, and thank you for recognizing her. And I know for myself, Member Montero, Vice President Montero, Member James, not Member James, I'm sorry, very tired. Member Hodge and Member Barraza, she has kept us all in line when it comes to the vouchers every single week. And from the moment the VP vote goes down, there's an email waiting for us, letting us know that we have vouchers ready to review. So, no, and she's amazing and has always been super helpful and informative, and a great person to talk with and get to know. So, thank you so much for you. All right, Dr. Mendeville, any additional communications?
No.
No? All right. So for the first time with this board, we are ending at 7:30, which has never happened.
Enjoy it when it happens.
Wow, I'm impressed. All right. The next regular meeting is April 6th, 2022. I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Vice President Montero. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.